Blackburn Rovers were Premier League champions in 1994-95, but just 4 short years later they found themselves relegated from the Premier League. We've journeyed back in time courtesy of the mad scientist to change the course of history. And we're here in 98-99, the season Blackburn went down, to not only avoid relegation and rewrite the course of history, but to take it a step further, and we want to regain our Premier League trophy. But not only that, we want to win the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, and the Champions League, and we've only got 5 years to do it. So here we are in charge of Blackburn in 1998 with essentially a decent enough team to start with, but there will be a lot of changes going forward, and we've actually got £10 million to make those changes this season. So let's get into the market. We had to strengthen throughout, so we started with Miroslav Klose, a young prospect who might not be first team ready, but with a couple of loans, who knows? Next up was a transfer for the here and now, focusing on the spine of the team, a marauding box-to-box midfielder, Mark van Bommel, an absolute bargain at £4 million. The bargain hunting continued, and this time we spent £2.5 million on John Carew. Big, quick, strong, and equally comfortable scoring with his head or his feet. He could be an absolute superstar in our team and system. Speaking of superstars, well, need we say more about this guy? He looks decent, bags of potential, and could really propel us to the top of world football. £2 million we spent on Brazilian youngster Ronaldinho. And then we got creative with some instalments for centre-back Kevin Hoffland and versatile defender Skurla. And that for now concludes our transfer business. We'd like to have spent more, as there are many more positions we could still do with improving, but with no transfer budget remaining and overspending on wages, this will have to do. And this is how we're going to line up, with John Carew and Chris Sutton fantastic at heading and being target forwards. We need to whip those crosses in, and Damien Duff is a natural left-footed, old-fashioned winger. He will be a key man for us. Then there's Ronaldinho pulling the strings. He will be the link and the creative force. Mark van Bommel marauding as a box-to-box midfielder, taking the game by the scruff of the neck. And the media expect us to finish 8th, which I hope we can exceed those expectations and sneak into some European football. We started things off with the win against Middlesbrough with some debut goals. Unfortunately, Kevin Hoffland's was in his own net, but his blushes were spared as Carew set up Ronaldinho to lash home before racing clear and getting on the scoresheet himself with a well-composed finish in a comfortable 4-1 win. John Carew continued his promising start with a brace against Chelsea. He then scored again, as did Ronaldinho, in a 4-1 win against Charlton. Back-to-back 3-0 wins against Newcastle, then Coventry, meant we'd won all 5 of our opening games. And with that great form, we found ourselves 4th. We had a big test at home against Manchester United next and got off to a positive start, going ahead through a goal from Chris Sutton. United bounced back with goals from Dwight Yorke and Nicky Butt, leaving them going into the break 2-1 ahead. We did not crumble, however, as we did not only come back into it, but actually went 3-2 up with a brace from John Carew. These goals were either side of a Stefan Henshaw red card as well, and speaking of that red card, United found space in the 86th minute, Dwight Yorke scoring his second and equalising for Man United. And then, heartbreak. In the 91st minute, Dwight Yorke completed his hat-trick. But the drama was not over there. Oh no, in the 97th minute, or Fergie time if you will, we showed great character and resolve as Kevin Gallagher snatched us a well-deserved point, 4-all. That's probably the highest scoring draw all season. The Europa League draw served us up a very winnable group, and we got our campaign off to a dreadful start against Sturm Graz, going behind after 10 minutes. However, things quickly turned round as we equalised less than a minute later. It was comfortable for there on in, as the victory never looked in doubt. Chris Sutton turning his brace not only into a hat-trick, but 4, whilst John Carew had to slum it with just 2. We returned from the Europa League with a great 3-0 win against Leeds, completely blowing them away by going 3-0 up inside 20 minutes. That form turned somewhat, however, as we lost 2-1 at home to Grasshoppers in the Europa League before throwing points away in the league, first succumbing to a 90th minute equaliser against West Ham before throwing the lead away twice against Leicester in a 2-2 draw. We got back to winning ways with a 3-0 against Sporting before continuing that in the league with a 4-2 win against Spurs. Chris Sutton missing a penalty in both games. We could almost secure qualification with a win in the return game against Sporting, and we were behind within 6 minutes, and they'd already missed a penalty. Damien Duff though then bagged a brace to have us in the driving seat before Sporting equalised in the 87th minute. Luckily, John Carew had other ideas, scoring twice before the end of the game. We won 4-2. But then we dropped more points in the league, this time against Aston Villa, 1-all. Against Southampton, it was Sutton and Carew at it again, both scoring 2 apiece. However, John Carew did have the chance to get his hat-trick with this penalty, but again, another penalty miss. I hope we don't have to rely on penalties in a cup competition. We then secured safe passage from the group in the Europa League before beating current Premier League champions Arsenal. We read a look as they missed a penalty and Patrick Vieira was sent off early. We capitalised and are still unbeaten. And we're in second and genuinely in the conversation. Europe was a goal, and at this point, you've got to think Champions League football? And with 3 wins and a draw in the next 4 games, saw us actually go top of the table. 18 games in and we're top, unbeaten. Things couldn't be going much better, right? Wrong! The board piped up and said, hey, well done, here's £38 million to spend. Don't mind if I do. Despite Sutton and Carew's scintillating form, they're similar types of players, and I wanted something different, and this is all about redemption and rewriting history. So I thought, let's give someone a chance who was far better than their Premier League career suggested. Welcome to Blackburn, Andrei Shevchenko, 9.6 million from Dynamo Kiev. We then looked at Kieran Dyer for the versatile wing-back midfield option, but he then chose Arsenal. With one eye on the future, we bought Michael Carrick from West Ham for 3.7 million and Andy O'Brien from Bradford for 1.2 million. Then for the here and now, as well as the future, we bought Belazoglu Emre for £10.5 million. Great current ability, great potential ability. He might rival Shevchenko for signing of the January window. We strengthened our resolve at left back / left midfield with the signing of Kobiashvili for 4.2 million. And we had a little left to spend, so we looked at Juan Reynoso. At 29, he's very much one for now, not the future, but 1.4 million, good ability, and a model citizen. He'll be a great mentor to some of our young players. And that then concluded the January transfer business. Back to the action on the pitch. In the Coca-Cola Cup, we dispatched of Wolves comfortably 5-1. Ronaldinho and Carew both had 2 goals, and when chasing the hat-trick, it was Ronaldinho who won that race, scoring a header. We then beat Southampton 2-0 in the FA Cup before crashing out of the Coca-Cola Cup to United. It was an absolute shit show in the opening 10 minutes, 2 goals for Andy Cole, then a red card for Perez. We restored some pride by it finishing 4-2, but we were too slow at the blocks. After the disappointing Coca-Cola Cup result, we bounced back against Liverpool, Emre scoring inside of a minute. Unfortunately though, this is as good as it got, as Liverpool came back into the game and took complete control and ultimately ran out 4-1 winners. The biggest kick in the balls was the 92nd minute injury to Damien Duff. Just a broken leg and out for the rest of the season then. The form continued to disappoint as we let a 1-0 lead slip against Villa, conceding a late goal. However, then we were the beneficiaries of a late goal against West Ham, Emre rescuing a point in stoppage time. This had us drop to 4th after 21 games, but, you know, we are still in the mix. We're 2 points off the top as Arsenal, Aston Villa and Liverpool are all on 48 points. We're a couple of points clear of United in 5th, so European qualification is definitely still a realistic possibility. We had a 5-star performance in the FA Cup 5th round against Ipswich, a 5-1 win with goals from new boys Shevchenko, Emre and Kobiashvili. We returned to winning ways in the league with a 2-0 win against Leeds and 2 for new cult hero Andrei Shevchenko. We then drew 1-1 with Spurs before John Carew came up with the goods against Leicester, a 3-0 win and a hat-trick for the big man. Despite that win though, previous results have seen us fail to capitalise on other teams around us dropping points, leaving us in 3rd with current leaders Liverpool up next. It feels like a must-win game. If we win, we'll leapfrog them and maybe go top, but they do have a game in hand. And win it we did! Another hat-trick, this time stepping up Chris Sutton. He did once again miss a penalty, but he managed to score the rebound. He had to wait until stoppage time for his hat-trick, controlling the ball on his chest and turning beautifully, taking the defender completely out of the equation before deploying a composed finish into the corner. Then in the following game against Chelsea, Chris Sutton continued his goal-scoring form early on, giving us the lead. Chelsea hit back with a double from Gianfranco Zola. Ronaldinho popped up in the right place at the right time with a beautiful finish to draw things level. And it was an injury time goal once again for Chris Sutton, this time securing the victory for us, a hard-fought 3-2 win. Then it was back-to-back games against Middlesbrough, the first a 2-1 win in the FA Cup, followed by a 6-1 win in the league, Shevchenko scoring 4. This result was doubly impressive as we were down to 10 men after 7 minutes. And this took us top of the league. Liverpool still have that game in hand, but we're top. In the Europa League, we were humbled by Fiorentina, losing 3-1 away from home, giving ourselves a lot to do in the return leg. We rested a few players against Forest and drew 0-0 before the home leg against Fiorentina. And we started strong with a goal after 2 minutes, Gary Flitcroft cutting in from the wing and just kept going and going until he fired home. The comeback faltered as Edmundo equalised on quarter of an hour. We had it all to do, and even when Ronaldinho put us back ahead on the night, we were still 4-3 down on the tie. On the stroke of half time though, Ronaldinho popped up again and scored again. Not the best goalkeeping, but we'll take it. We headed into half time level, and for the first time in the tie, we believed. We took the game to them in the second half, and Ronaldinho popped up again, scoring his hat-trick. A star-making performance. Ronaldinho continued his purple patch as he scored after 2 minutes in the FA Cup quarter-final. He got a second late on before Shevchenko sealed the win, 3-0 against Sunderland, and we were in the semi-finals. After the 0-0 with Forest, we managed to keep top spot by winning 2 on the spin, 3-0 against Sheffield Wednesday and 2-0 against Derby County. Liverpool still have that game in hand, but there's daylight between us and the rest of the chasing pack. But we're the masters of our own downfall, and back-to-back draws nerfed our title hopes as we failed to beat Wimbledon, and we were lucky to even get a draw against Everton. David Unsworth missed a penalty. Europa League time, and it was Slavia Prague, and we won 3-1 in the away leg, a very late goal adding extra comfort for the home leg. And, to be honest, we did need that comfort as we spent the majority of the game 1-0 down, but we drew 1-1 and progressed to the semi-final. Speaking of semi-finals, it was the FA Cup against Leeds. In a dramatic game, Harry Kewell gave Leeds the lead. Leeds' lead lasted a couple of minutes before John Carew levelled things up. Emre then gave us the lead, but Leeds came back and cancelled out that lead by drawing level themselves with a goal from Alan Smith. Leeds then retook the lead themselves before we drew level again from the penalty spot in the second half. No more Leeds taking the lead in this game. We won 10-9 on penalties. So we're in the final, and we have to believe after the semi-final drama that it might be written in the stars that we're going to win the FA Cup this season. But from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, we all but threw the league challenge away as we were decimated 5-0 by Arsenal. We then acted all big and hard in response to that embarrassment as we beat Southampton 5-0. But then this was followed by a 2-0 defeat to Newcastle, so the title was all but gone. It wasn't just the title either, we were now 4th, and whilst it was tight and could swing every which way, we could slip out of the top 4 entirely, especially in this current form. In a drama-free semi-final of the Europa League, we strolled past Fenerbahce 4-0, then 3-0, a second final for us and a trophy cabinet that might need expanding. We beat Charlton 2-0, and with both United and Arsenal dropping points, we find ourselves back in second place. And it's very tight for European qualification, and with fellow European challengers Manchester United up next, it was a huge game in the season. After the 4-4 against United, would this have more goals? We started terribly with some dithering at the back, allowing United to score after 8 minutes. By 10 minutes it was 2-0, and by 12 minutes it was 3. It felt like game over already, and by the time United pinged it around like a training exercise to make it 4, I was already preparing the water bottle for half time. We didn't even make it to half time at 4-0 low, as United piled on the misery, making it 5. A thrown water bottle and a bollocking later, we started the second half. Shevchenko popped up and grabbed a goal, giving us a consolation. Some more pride was restored as Matt Jansen popped up and made it 5-2. By the time Shevchenko was robbed of this strike, calling it a Wes Brown own goal, it was 5-3, and we were in the ascendancy. Matt Jansen popped up again to make it 5-4 with a deft chipped finish, and it was United's turn to faff around at the back, giving it straight to Ronaldinho, who played it through for Shevchenko, who pulled it level. 5-5. The most a game of 2 halves of football I think I've ever seen. And the league games against United this season, aggregate 9-all. And then we finished the league off strong, beating Coventry 4-0, and we finished second behind Liverpool. A very successful first season in the league. Onwards and upwards for next season. But that's not all for today's chapter. Oh no. We had Inter Milan in the Europa League final, and they took the lead through Diego Simeone. Shevchenko popped up in the second half and drew us level. After 90 minutes it was still 1-1. Inter took the initiative in extra time, Sunday Oliseh with the goal, and that's how it finished. Inter win the Europa League. The FA Cup final against Manchester United, and I'm hoping for something less dramatic than the 4-all or 5-5 in the league. And it was less dramatic. It was Andy Cole early on before doubling the lead in the second half. We couldn't get a foothold in the game, and despite Nathan Blake's late goal, it didn't spur us on, and Manchester United won the FA Cup. So season 1 is in the books. Second in the league was a successful campaign, although twinged with disappointment that we were in the mix for so long. We can take positives though that our young stars can kick on and maybe next season mount a title challenge. Also disappointing in the Europa League and FA Cup to get to the final and come so far but ultimately fall short. It's very disappointing. And the board set the budgets of £85 million. So it's going to be an interesting transfer window.